Hi everyone, welcome to this new video series. I'm going to be starting here with Windows Server 2016. So getting started with Windows Server 2016. A number of years ago, Microsoft adjusted its operating system release ideology so that the latest Windows Server operating systems always being structured very similarly to the latest Windows client operating system. This has been the trend for some time now, with Windows Server 2008 R2 closely reflecting Windows 7, Server 2012 feeling a lot like Windows 8, and many of the same usability features that came with the Windows 8.1 update are also included with Server 2012. Given this, it makes sense that the new Windows Server 2012 will look and feel much like a Windows 10 experience, because that just released last year. Many folks who I work with and have talked to have not yet test-driven Windows 10 in their own networks and are not overly familiar with the interface. So it's important to establish a baseline for usability and familiarity in the operating system itself before diving deeper into the technologies running under the hood. Let's spend a few minutes exploring the new graphical interface and options that are available for finding your way around the latest release of Windows Server. What is the purpose of Windows Server? It's getting cloudy out there. An overview of the new features, navigating the interface using the new settings screen, task manager, task view. What is the purpose of Windows Server? A good question to ponder, especially now that the definition for servers and server workloads is changing on a regular basis. The answer to this question for Windows clients is simpler. A Windows client machine is a requester, consumer, and contributor of data. From where is the data being pushed and pulled? What enables the mechanisms and applications running on the client operating system to interface with this data? What secures these users and their data? This is the purpose of servers in general. They are housing, protecting, and serving up data to be consumed by clients. Everything revolves around data in business today. Our email, documents, databases, customer lists, everything that we need to do business well is data. Data that is critical to us. Servers are what we use to build the fabric upon which we trust our data to reside. We traditionally think about servers in a client-server interface mentality. A user opens a program on their client computer. This program reaches out to a server in order to retrieve something, and the server responds as needed. This idea can be correctly applied to just about every transaction you may have with a server. When your domain joined computer needs to authenticate you as a user, it reaches out to Active Directory on the server to validate your credentials and get an authentication token. When you need to contact a resource by name, your computer asks a DNS server how to get there. If you need to open a file, you ask the file server to send it your way. Servers are designed to be the brains of your operation and often do so transparently. Especially in recent years, large strides have been taken to ensure resources are always available and accessible in ways that don't require training or large effort on the part of our employees. In most organizations, many different servers are needed in order to provide your workforce with the capabilities they require. Each service inside Windows Server is provided as part of a role. When you talk about needing new servers or configuring a new server for any particular task, what you are really referring to is the traditional role or roles that you are going to be configured on that server in order to get the work done. A server without any roles installed is useless unless, though, depending on the chassis, can make an excellent paperweight. If you think of roles as the meat and potatoes of a server. Then the next bit we will discuss is sort of like adding salt and pepper beyond the overhead roles you will install and configure on your servers. Windows also contains many features that can be installed, which sometimes stand alone, but more often complement specific roles in the operating system. Features may be something that complements and adds functionality to the base operating system, such as Telnet client, or a feature may be added to a server in order to enhance an existing role, such as adding the network load balancing feature to an already equipped remote access server. The combination of roles and features inside Windows Server is what equips that piece of metal to do work. Cloud. There is a new term out there, you may have heard of it. Cloud. While the word cloud has certainly turned into a buzzword that is often misused and spoken of inappropriately, the idea of cloud infrastructure is an incredibly powerful one. A cloud fabric is one that revolves around virtual resources, virtual machines, virtual disks, and even virtual networks. Being plugged into a cloud typically enables things like the ability to spin up new servers on a whim, or even the ability for particular services themselves to increase or decrease their needed resources automatically based on utilization. Think of a simple e-commerce website where a consumer can go to order goods. Perhaps 75% of the year they can operate this website on a single web server with limited resources, resulting in a fairly low cost of service. But the other 25% of the year, maybe around holiday seasons, utilizing ramps way up, require much more computing power. Prior to cloud mentality, this would mean that the company would need to have their environment size to fit the maximum requirement all the time in case it was ever needed. They would be paying for more servers and much more computing power that was needed for the majority of the year. With a cloud fabric giving the website the ability to increase or decrease the number of servers it has at its disposal as needed, the total cost of such website or service can be drastically decreased. This is the major driving factor of the cloud in business today. Private cloud. While most people working in the IT sector these days have a pretty good understanding of what it means to be part of a cloud service, and many are indeed doing so today, a term which is being pushed into enterprises everywhere and is still many times misunderstood is private cloud. At first, I took this to be a silly marketing ploy, a gross misuse of the term cloud to try and appeal to those hooked by buzzwords. Boy, was I wrong. In the early days of private clouds, the technology wasn't quite ready to stand up to what was being advertised. Today, however, the story has changed. It is now entirely possible to take the same fabric that is running up in the true public cloud and install that fabric right inside your data center. This enables you to provide your company with cloud benefits such as the ability to spin resources up and down and to run everything virtualized, and to implement all of the neat tips and tricks of cloud environments. With all of the serving power and data stored remaining locally owned and secured by you, trusting cloud storage companies to keep data safe and secure is absolutely one of the biggest blockers to implementation on the true public cloud. But by installing your own private cloud, you get the best of both worlds: stretchable compute environments with the security of knowing you still control and own all of your own data. This is not a book about clouds, public or private. I mentioned this to give a baseline for some of the items we will discuss. in later chapters, and also to get your mouth watering a little bit to dig in and do a little reading yourself on cloud technology. You will see the Windows Server 2016 interface in many new ways with the cloud, and will notice that so many of the underlying systems available in Server 2016 are similar, if not the same, to as those becoming available inside Microsoft Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud services platform. In these pages, we will not focus on the capabilities of Azure, but rather a more traditional sense of Windows Server that would be utilized on-premise with the big push toward cloud technologies. It's easy to get caught with blinders on and think that everything and everyone is quickly running to the cloud for all of their technology needs, but it simply isn't true. Most companies will have the need for many on-premise servers for many years to come. In fact, many may never put full trust in the cloud and will forever maintain their own data centers. These data centers will have local servers that will require administrators to manage them. An overview of new features. The newest version of the Windows Server operating system is always an evolution of its predecessor. There are certainly pieces of technology contained inside which are brand new, but there are even more places where existing technologies have been updated to include new features and functionality. Let's spend a few minutes to give an overhead view of some of the new capabilities that exist in Windows Server 2016. The Windows 10 experience. Lately, a new release to any Microsoft operating system has meant learning a new user interface, and Server 2016 is no exception. If you have been using and have become familiar with navigating around Windows 10, you should find yourself fairly comfortable with driving the new server operating system as well. We will actually cover quite a bit on this topic in just a minute, right inside this first chapter, as we learn some tips and tricks for moving around smoothly and efficiently within the new interface. Software-defined networking. An idea that started to take shape in Server 2012 was software-defined networking, SDN, though at that time, the only realistic functionality was provided by the specific component of Hyper-V network virtualization, similar to the idea of virtualizing the server hardware platforms into new virtual machines. We now have the capability to virtualize our network layer, which provides various benefits, especially for large organizations and cloud service providers. PowerShell 5.0. PowerShell is the new command prompt. More than that, PowerShell is arguably the most powerful configuration tool for every aspect within Windows Server. Most functions in Windows have a graphical interface from which you can make changes and adjust settings, and these GUIs have PowerShell counterparts, which allows you to perform the same actions from a command line. In fact, some features in Windows Server cannot be performed without PowerShell. It is becoming that integral. We have a chapter coming up later which will discuss new functionalities and ideas in the latest version of PowerShell. Built-in malware protection. Microsoft has been including its own malware protection in the client operating systems since Windows 8, but never before on a server platform. Times have changed. Windows Defender has been improved, and it now runs by default on Windows Server 2016. Soft start. There's a new reboot sheriff in town. In an effort to speed up reboots, there is an optional reboot setting now called soft restart. This is a feature to be installed within the Windows Server 2016 operating system, and once installed, it provides a capability to initiate a soft restart. So what is a soft restart? It is a restart without hardware initialization. In other words, it restarts the operating system without restarting the whole machine. It is important to note that this feature needs to be specifically installed, and it is invoked when restarting by adding a special switch to either the shutdown command or the restart computer CMD LET. Here are examples of each using the shutdown command: shutdown or soft T0 or equals restart, soft equals soft restart, T0 equals 0 seconds until reboot initiates. Using the restart command CMD let restart computer soft Nano Server. You've probably heard of Server Core, but I doubt many of these reading this book have deployed it. Unfortunately, the powerful security story behind Server Core is going largely unused, but Microsoft expects this to change completely with the release of Nano Server in Windows Server 2016. Nano Server has a greatly decreased security footprint and incredibly small hardware requirements. In the next few years, it is expected that many companies will swing a lot of their workloads from traditional servers over to Nano servers. Web Application Proxy. Web Application Proxy, WAP, is a role that was introduced in Windows Server 2012 or 2 and provides us with the ability to reverse proxy web applications. In other words, we can take internal web resources like Outlook, Web Access, and SharePoint sites and publish them securely out to our remote users on the internet. WAP in Server 2012 or 2 came with very limited functionality, and that combined with some pretty steep installation requirements means that almost nobody is using it in production. We are talking about it here in our chapter on remote access because a number of new functions have been provided with the Server 2016 version, and we hope that many more folks will start deploying this new remote access technology. Shielded virtual machines. So many companies are running the majority of their servers as virtual machines today. One of the big problems with this is that there are some inherent security loopholes that exist in the virtualization to host platforms of today. One of these holes is backdoor access to the hard disk files of your virtual machines. It is quite easy for anyone with administrative rights on the virtual host to be able to see, modify, or break any virtual server that is running within that host. And these modifications can be made in almost untraceable ways. Navigating the interface. Unfortunately, Microsoft has turned a lot of people off with the introduction of Windows 8 and Server 2012, not because functionality or reliability was lacking, but because the interface was so vastly different than it had been before. It was almost like running two separate operating systems at the same time. You had the normal desktop experience in which all of us spent 99% of our time, but then there are also those few moments where you find yourself needing to visit the full page start menu. More likely you stumbled into it without wanting to. However, you ended up there inside that full screen tablet interface for the remaining 0.01% of your Server 2012 experience. You are left confused, disturbed, and wishing you were back in the traditional desktop. I am, of course, speaking purely from experience here. There may be variance in your personal percentages of some time spent, but based on the conversations I've been involved with, I am not alone in these views, and I haven't even mentioned the magical self-appearing charms bar. Some bad memories are better left in the recess of the brain. The major update of Windows 8.1 and Server 2012 or 2 came as a welcome relief to these symptoms. There was an actual start button in the corner again, and you could choose to boot primarily into the normal desktop mode. However, should you ever have the need to click on the start menu, you found yourself right back in the full page start screen, which I still find almost all server admins trying their best to avoid at all costs. Well, it turns out that Microsoft has been listening, because the interface in Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016 seems to have found a very good balance. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.